can't tell you the number of people that have said to me in the course of the last couple of years, we don't recognise our town, we don't recognise our village. We go to the shops and we're surrounded by people speaking foreign languages. And Nigel, why has it happened so quickly? Well, it's true to say that in the last 3 years alone, the population of some of the towns in our country has risen by 10% or perhaps even more. And just today, 500 more crossed the English Channel, which was a very narrow window of just 12 hours in between strong winds. And if you have a look, at the Starmer, we're going to smash the gangs, well, you'll see that actually this year is over 40,000 people that have come to the country. Not quite as high as it was just a couple of years back in 2022, but a few more calm days between now and the new year, and we may well get close to that total. What's interesting, though, is that's the figure for illegals, but that's only about a third, 35-40% of the overall number of people we believe are coming in illegally. And then, of course, we've got legal net migration, which during the Boris Johnson period went through the roof. And just think about these numbers. From the late 1940s until about the year 2000, net migration into Britain ran at about 30 to 35,000 a year. Some years, it was even a negative. Under Blair, we go up to 250,000. But get the Tories in, and then the numbers really start to move. And look at the Boris wave, net migration of 1 million in 2023 alone. But folks, these are only guesstimates. There are many think that the true numbers that are in Britain, legally and illegally, are considerably higher than any of those graphs that I've just shown you. And that's led to policy exchange. And this is a coming together of Nadhim Zahawi, former Conservative Chancellor, and Lord Maurice Glasman of Labour, a friend of this programme. And they've come together and said, we need to have an emergency census. Let's take 10 areas of the UK, do a full census. Let's estimate really how big the population is, what that means for impacts on the health service, what that actually means for the number of homes we have to build, and indeed, what it means perhaps for deporting people who've come into Britain illegally. Maurice Glasman added these comments backing up the idea of having this census. In the interest of protecting critical infrastructure and identifying risks of civil unrest, the country needs up-to-date population data which provides vital, on-the-ground insights. If we are truly serious about integration as a society, fresh information is needed on forms of neighbourhood segregation and levels of English language proficiency in local communities. I strongly encourage the Labour government to take note of the social justifications for an emergency 2026 census in England. Well, let me ask you, is this census necessary? Tweet #Farage on GB News or email farage@gbnews.com. And folks, for what it's worth, I think it's absolutely vital that we do this. How the hell can we plan any sense of what infrastructure needs to be without having a better, more accurate reflection of the numbers? And I'm guessing one of the ways we can do it actually is by looking at what supermarkets sell. You think about the big 3 or 4 supermarkets, very easy to work out just how many people are living in their areas.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
I'm joined tonight on the panel by Lord John Cryer, former chairman of the Parliamentary Labour Party, and Kwasi Kwarteng, former MP and Chancellor of the Exchequer. This one, John, it's cross-party in a sense. We've got Morris, Glasman, Nadeem Zahawi. And I mean, I'm not making it up. People saying to me, Colchester in Essex, we barely recognise it from a couple of years ago. Something very big's going on. Yeah,
I mean, no, I mean, I've heard it. When you get that rapidity of change, because I've seen it in the past. I mean, I've seen it under governments of both stripes.
Yes.
If you're asking what I think of Morris's suggestion, I'll talk a fair bit to Morris. I haven't seen him for a few days, so I haven't heard that. But I think it's fair enough. I can see his point. I can see his argument. I suspect that Morris probably has a bit more sway with the Home Secretary than I have. So I suspect he'll be going to see Savannah and saying, let's have a census.
He comes on this show and sings her praises, you know.
He does it all the time. It's not just on this show. It's constant. Yeah, it's true.
Well, Kwasi, I mean, you know, you were there during the Boris wave.
That's right. I was in Cabinet at the time. But in terms of the census, you know, I always like to bring things to history. I mean, we've had a census every 10 years for more than 200 years.
Yes.
And now we've got the technology, and because of this rapidity of transformation, it's blindingly obvious and commonsensical to have an intermediate census between 2021, when it was last done, and we'll have to wait till 2031 for the next census. Yeah. So I think it makes perfect sense.
And the idea is just in 10 key areas.
Yeah, you do it's like a form of sampling.
A big sample.
Yes, you do a big sample and then you extrapolate what the actual population is, because the critically important thing is in government you have to obviously come up with policies, and if you don't know actually how many people there are, how on earth can you have constructive, serious policy making when you don't even know what you're dealing with?
Do you suspect, Kwasi, that the numbers really are much, much higher than
I think they're higher. I mean, I remember as an MP, people would come to my surgery, and I'm sure John had the same experience. You probably have it now. People coming in, and I remember a gentleman from Sri Lanka coming in and saying he wanted a British passport. And I said, well, where's your old passport? The Sri Lankan passport. I said, oh, I never had one. I said, how on earth did you get here? and he was trafficked, essentially, to Britain. He ended up living in my constituency. Good guy. But, of course, without a passport, he never travelled. Yeah. So he was here for 15 years, essentially living in the shadows, doing odd jobs. And then finally, when he wanted to see his mother, I think it was, obviously he needed a passport to travel there. And he came to see me because he hadn't had a passport, ever.
And what do you do in a situation like that, Kwasi? Because, I mean, you know, the guy's here illegally.
That's right.
He claims he was trafficked.
That's right. He's been here 15 years doing odd jobs in the community, petrol stations, restaurants, that sort of thing. And it's very difficult as an MP when you deal with that.
I had cases.
You would have done.
I mean, Leighton-on-Wanstead is one of the most mixed places, not just in Britain, but on the face of the planet. So you name a community, I've probably had it in Leighton-on-Wanstead. And I had people who'd been... I mean, I can remember some quite tragic cases. There were some people who I managed to help, but you really need an immigration lawyer, and you need a decent immigration lawyer, because there are some real charlatans out there who sell themselves as immigration lawyers, and they say to vulnerable people, give me your money and I'll sort it out. Then somebody like me or Kwasi goes to the Home Office. There's no application with the Home Office. They've just taken the money and run. Actually, that's one thing that I know this is a side issue, but we ought to have proper regulation of immigration advice. It's something we've never done.
But the point about, I mean, so I met this gentleman probably 10 years ago, and the point that reinforced to me was that we don't have a clue who's here.
No.
I mean, I was just one MP out of 650.
Which justifies the demand.
For a it seems eminently sensible. And those years when we had, you know, we used to have them we do have them every 10 years.
Yeah. But it seems to me... But see, we rely with the census on the old-fashioned, you know, something through the letterbox or online, and people responding to it. And the evidence is, if there's large numbers of people here illegally, they will not respond.
Of course they won't.
So we have to use modern. I suggested supermarket sales.
Sure.
But there are all sorts of measures on the street.
You're right. I mean,
numbers,
look,
people
the first census
cars.
was in 1801, okay?
Yeah.
And they had the technology they had then. We have our technology, and there are lots of ways. We've got pollsters who do these very fancy MRP polls.
Yep.
We know about statistics. We know about sampling. And I think the suggestion you made, looking at supermarkets, looking at other data, you can very quickly extrapolate with a high degree of accuracy what the actual population is. Because if you just give people forms with pen and paper, they're not going to fill it in.
No. I mean, John made the point that both governments have been guilty of letting in too many people. Do you feel ever so slightly ashamed of what happened in those years?
I think it was a great shame that what happened under the Conservatives. I don't feel personally responsible. I feel personally responsible for a lot of things, but that wasn't my beat, as it were. But I also feel, and this is a wider, more serious question, actually, I think the Home Office has some questions in terms of how they regulated this, because I had the feeling that within the Home Office, and certainly within the Treasury a little bit, there were people who were quite happy.
And because the more people in the country...
boost GDP,
the GDP
all
number
of that sort of
goes
stuff.
up.
And then the OBR's happy. And I think, this whole question isn't just about Labour or Conservative, it's about the state. It's about the
It's also. I mean, Morris mentioned integration, fears of civil disorder. The integration point matters a lot.
Yeah, it does matter a lot. I mean, you can achieve integration, but if you get very, very high concentrations of people who can't speak English, so they can't relate to the outside world, then it's more a problem for them actually than it is for anybody else. I was going to say, and this has shifted between the two big parties over the last 50 years. I've never understood why trade unionists like me would believe in freedom of movement, because actually it's freedom to be exploited to the nth degree, which is exactly what happened.
And it kept wages low. I mean, we don't need to rehearse the whole Brexit debate, but that was a big part of.
I've never understood it either. I've never understood it either.